There are different ways that you can critique a piece of architecture. So let's say that there are 6 main categories, and in each of these categories, you can rate a piece of architecture like you would rate a movie on a scale of 1 to 10.
I was going to say you rate a sandwich.
I rate a sandwich from 1 to 10 to paint. Yeah, that's
How's the bread? How's the bread? That's the big question.
So these are 6 categories, and it's not to say that these are the ultimate 6, that these are the 6 commandments, but these are roughly the big points, and there's maybe another few that are there. The first is a relationship to site. This is pretty obvious, right? This is something we all should know. The next is program. The third is the relationship to the local culture and people. The fourth is its technical integrity. And then fifth is sustainability. And then sixth is beauty. And beauty in this case includes form, materials, color, space, all of the stuff that we like to probably focus on more than anything else sometimes. But so let's say you have those 6 tests or 6 categories. And basically you can approach any building, any project, and be like, okay, here are 6 categories. I'm your judge. I'm going to rate you 1 to 10 and whether or not you fulfill these categories. Now, I think that from the perspective of a critic, when the project is done, you can critique a project that way. Again, the same way you rate a movie in a sense. But in terms of process, it's very dangerous to try and think about a project in that way and to try and design a project that way. There's a number of reasons for that. The first is that in the design process, you have to realize that there is hierarchy between everything you're dealing with. The information you get when you're doing your research, there's hierarchy within there. You need to figure that out. But there's also hierarchy within these 6 things. So you should not think that during the design process that you should place equal importance on all 6 of these categories, right? And you should not feel like you have to, during the design process, be successful in all of these categories. Like, I need to get a 10 out of 10 out of all these categories by the midterm, by halfway through the design of the project. That's a terrible way to design. It won't work. It's not going to work because these 6 categories, you have to understand, they are totally indifferent to the story that is your design. And design is storytelling. They're indifferent to that story. And that story, by default, by definition, is going to have hierarchy. It's going to have more important things and less important things. These 6 categories, which are, encompassing the big view, they don't care about any of that stuff.
And those categories, like you said, and sometimes you decide what the hierarchy is, and some of them sometimes come with the project or the client or the site.
Right. That's true. And so when you force these 6 things on the project, either you're going to produce something that's incredibly boring and banal, it has no direction, no soul, no story, no concept, right? Or you're going to be completely paralyzed. And we see this actually a lot with younger designers. They get, let's say, feedback, and then they get feedback about all 6 of these things, and they go back to their projects, and now they're like, okay, I got to try and answer all of these 6 different categories halfway through the design process. And they become you become completely paralyzed because it's almost impossible. Like I was saying, also, when you force these 6 categories on yourself on the project, you can produce something banal. Like an example of this would be, okay, take any speech given by any CEO of any generic corporation. When they give a speech, right, it's incredibly boring, dry, has no soul, it's humanless. It's been manufactured, right? Why? Because they have a team of people who have these 6 categories that are trying to check off all of the boxes. Check, 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 check equals good speech. No, it doesn't. It equals a decent speech, but it's so boring and not real.
Well, and that's what we said earlier, comes back at you, is that it's not a mathematical formula. There needs to be some dosing, there needs to be some sensitivity to which one is stronger than the other. Mm-hmm. It needs to be a balance.
If you think about speech writing and also story writing, if your job is to write a story, and design is basically you're doing the same exact thing, but instead of words, you're using formal components, physical structures and things. If you try and write a story fulfilling the 6, categories of what makes a good story, I don't think anyone can write a story that way. One could easily argue for capital A architecture and for the development of the designer, that it's more productive to produce something that actually has a spine and has a story and a direction that it's clear, rather than one that's trying to satisfy everybody. The other aspect of this is to realize that